Oftentimes you might find yourself needing to change the color of something in an image, and in most cases it's either skin, eyes, or in this case hair, and that's the focus of this video. I'm going to walk you through how to change an image from a specific state. In this case, her hair is dyed purplish color, kind of with gray going on, and we're going to change it into a blonde color, a black color, and finally a brown color. So we can do this in a variety of ways, but there's a great layer adjustment we can create that ultimately changes the tones of the image. It's called recolor. So what I'm going to do is actually start from scratch in this file and delete those layers for now. And we'll start with a fresh working copy. I'm going to save this down. Working copy, there we go. And we have our base file here. Inside of it is just the background image. And from there, we need to first think about what we're going to change in terms of color first. And oftentimes blonde hair is the hardest to create, but in this specific case, since her hair is already a cooler color, it's actually harder to create a darker color, as you'll find out when we get going here. So first I'm going to start with blonde, and we'll keep going after that to black and then brown. Okay, so I'm going to start off with adding a layer adjustment that's called recolor on the image itself, and basically we want to pick a tone that's more or less the color we're after, and which is kind of a warmer orange yellow color. We don't have to go crazy with the saturation here, maybe 50% or 60 in this case. And you can toy with different blend modes. Already it's kind of taking shape here. If we do like a hard light, that's already kind of the color we're after, but it's a little heavy on the contrast. So let's see if we can't do something. So we've got color here, color there. So maybe we can leave it as color there, and we'll roll with that. I think what we can do at this point is add a mask on this color layer, or recolor adjustment layer, and kind of brush away some of that we already applied. So we have it to the whole image at this point. If you go in and just brush away, my opacity set a little too low, so I'm going to increase it to about 80%. My hardness is all the way down right now. We're just going to kind of brush back what we took in. And the more time you spend here, the better it will look. So if you take your time and mask this to the best of your ability, then you should be okay. Obviously changing hair color is I mean, it should be kind of trivial, but at the same time, getting the right effects, lighting, tones, and all of that is a little challenging based on the color you're going for. So I'm going to continue this masking real quick, and then we'll continue on. So I've brushed away quite a bit of the mask of the effect we applied. Obviously, there's some parts that just aren't working, like the bangs here of her hair are still that purple shade. And I did that for a couple reasons. Below, I want the skin to kind of pull through, so it looks like it's underneath the actual hair and instead of the actual color of the filter. So what I want to do is kind of brush back in that, and then I'm going to add a layer of sampling the actual skin here. So I'm going to hold Option and click in this case and just brush over that area kind of up and throughout here, and then we'll actually apply a color blend mode on that layer, and it should take effect and kind of blend in a little bit better since it's the color of the skin, which is what we were after. So it's not quite 100% perfect there, but I think it's capturing the look we're after in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and once more go over that with that white on the mask just to kind of make things pop there. And certain strands of hair are just going to be challenged in this one. So what we can do though, before we go further, is possibly clean up this photo to start with. There are certain strands in this photo we can mess with, in the sense that some of the hair is there, it doesn't need to be. Some of these strands, so if you use the end painting tool on the actual background photo, you can brush that on and it should subtract some of that. How much time you spend here is up to you. So I'll just go quickly and get some of these things out of it. It's not a big deal if you don't get all of it. Obviously, if you take too much out, it won't look realistic. Okay, so let's reactivate that layer. Now this layer, it's looking okay. It's a little yellow in the sense that it's too yellow. So I think what I'm going to do is go back a little bit to the orange-ish and decrease the saturation a bit. I think that's a little more natural there. And then we can possibly add some curves adjustments here just to kind of give a little different dynamic on the shadows and highlights. And this layer will have to start there. You can increase the brightness by doing sort of an S curve in this case, making it a little more natural. And again, if you don't want that applied on the skin, which in this case I think it looks okay, but you can brush away some of that if you add a mask on this, or if you just brush onto this layer, it's already a mask, so you can go ahead and just brush right onto it. Okay, great. So a nice, I guess, technique or trick I like to do is adding a little more oomph to the hair, the lights in the hair. So what I tend to do is add a new pixel layer in this case and get it to white. And you'll just kind of brush on the areas you envision being where the highlights would, more or less be if sun were hitting it or light were hitting it. Blonde hair, it's not so noticeable, but on darker hair or black hair, you can definitely see this more. So this might be subtle, but I'm gonna kind of just tweak parts of the photo that might have some of the highlights that I'm speaking about. Go ahead and brush those in real light, and then go to this gear icon in the layers panel. It's going to open this blend options panel with underlining composition ranges is what we're looking for. And you can tweak this handle on the left and just slowly increase it, or decrease it I should say, kind of go all the way down and then over just a tad, and you'll start to see the difference there with this going on. Toy with the visibility of the layer to see the improvements it makes, but it basically just highlights the highlighted parts of the image, I should say, more or less just bringing that out more to make it look a little bit more believable in this case. So I think it's doing its job there. Great. So I think blonde hair is kind of already solved in this case. Obviously, the more time you spend here, the better. There's a little bits of that color up here I'm not 100% sold on in terms of the top of her head, but overall I think it's looking okay so far. So maybe I'll do just a real low opacity brush up here with a black paintbrush. We can kind of bring some of that grayer tone hair back just a little. Okay, so I think that wraps up the blonde hair. Let's go ahead and move to the black hair, which is probably the hardest one, the one I had the most trouble with. So let's work with that. I think I'm going to save that down, and we'll create a duplicate of this layer group and name it black. And we'll go ahead and I'm going to keep this layer, the one we just added, the highlights, but the rest I'm going to delete, and we'll start fresh. So I'm going to turn this off for now, and we'll add, at this point, since black hair is so dramatic, we can't just add a recolor adjustment because there's really no hue of black in this case. So what we can do is create a massive curve effect that applies itself to that image, and you can just drag this all the way in and we'll kind of create this really dark effect on the image. And from the previous group, I'm going to select that same mask we brushed in before. If you command click on that mask, it'll actually select it in this case again. I'm just going to apply that to this curves adjustment up here just by clicking the layer mask icon with that selected. And it should be all set in that case. So I'm going to close that one. So now we've got our quick mask already. And one more thing I would like to do is add a gradient map to this image. It's going to look funky at first, but I'm going to delete this point, add in black here, and then white on this one. And we'll close that. And same thing with this mask. Select that layer and hit mask there. Sort of have the end product. Obviously it's a little blurry around the edges, not quite what we're going for, but that's just our mask not being perfect. So what we can do is maybe toy with the blend modes here. Saturation looks okay. And curves, maybe adjust that some to not be so deep. From here on out, it's more or less just tweaking these masks to play nicely with the rest of the image, which you can do on your own, of course, but this could take some time just to kind of get in there and make it look realistic. Brush out any of that dark color that doesn't need to be there. So I'll do that real quick and probably fast forward to this part. Okay, so we've got the mask a little cleaned up. It's still, certain parts of it are still creeping through in terms of the original hair color. That's really just a hard thing to tackle. So I'm going to start at least cleaning up the bangs here to try to get those a little more black and white. Color underneath, I'm going to sample on the forehead here just to get a reference. And I'm going to paint just around the edge here and just get some of the original skin tone to creep through the hair, because I want it to almost emulate the fact that there's, you know, obviously the skin's underneath and it should be that right color instead of a gray color like we had before. So this is kind of just my technique to do that. And I changed this layer to have that color blend mode, a little more brown, warmer color there. In a nutshell, that's black. We had that layer before that had those highlights. We can adjust that layer if we want. So I have it active. It's really hard to see at this point, but we can go back and possibly adjust that to amp that up a little bit more. This is more or less just a trial and error approach. So here I had to kind of decrease what we had before since it's darker hair, but you'll notice it comes through quite a bit at this point with just that effect on it. Like anything else, you can brush away this effect. So I'm going to do just a little bit up here. Looks like it's a little too harsh. I'll just do hardness 0, opacity 20%, just kind of a little bit over the top. Great. So not perfect, but that gives you the sense of you can create quite a big difference and jump in the pitch of the tone of the image. Let me go ahead and duplicate this so we have a base layer to reference, and I'll put this at the very top, I guess. So here's our base layer. There's our black hair, there's our blonde hair. Blonde's still a little yellow, but you can go back and tweak that however you feel. The last one up is the brown hair, and I'm going to start with the blonde group and duplicate it. I'll hide the one below and just call this one brown. And it's a similar effect to blonde, only we need to add more of a darker tone, of course. So again, on the hue, this is going to be different in the sense that we need to kind of bring back the saturation and adjust the curves so it's a darker color. So I'm going to do that again in this case, but we're going to adjust the master to be inward and kind of scooped in this case. So we've kind of got a reddish brown color going on, almost like a red color, but what we can do is go back to the color adjustment, decrease that saturation, and we should be able to roll with that. What I want to do here, already I'm seeing some issues with our mask again because of the adjustments we just made, so I'm going to come back through and brush some of that away to kind of give that effect. We're after, same with the curves. Should do quite a bit of work when we mess with the curves layer. So I'm going super fast with this. Obviously, take more time on your own if you're trying to do a really good job. Obviously, having a better image where the hair is working with you as opposed to kind of just trailing off is also a plus. It's not necessary in every case, but sometimes it just makes all the difference when you're trying to do a realistic representation of a different hair color. So I think that's a decent stopping point. That is the brown tone. We have brown now. We had blonde from before, kind of a fake looking blonde. Maybe we can tweak this just a tad. It's not quite to my liking. It's a little too yellow, so I think I'm going to toy with saturation on the color adjustment. Something like that looks a little more natural. Awesome. So there's blonde, brown, black, and finally our place we started. If you're thinking about maybe dyeing your hair or something, think about taking a photo of yourself and seeing what it would look like. You can probably reference the boxes at your local market or store that has the hair dye and try to match it and see what it would look like. So hopefully this video helped you. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section. As always, I'll bundle these files and include them for pro subscribers. You can download and tweak to your liking. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.